Hey everybody, and welcome to Geeksvana Live. It's great to see you all. Thank you very much for coming across, the audience that have come across from the live premiere tonight. It was an exciting one this evening, wasn't it? Well, it's exciting for us drone geeks anyway. Very excited to see the new Drone Assist app, which is going to be in the app stores in the next few days, actually. It's very, very exciting. Those lucky beta testers who have all been quoted across Altitude Angel's social media recently have been playing with the app for a little while as well. So it's had a good test and it's ready. It's ready for its public appearance, frankly, which is really exciting. Now tonight we're going to be talking to a couple of gentlemen who I'll introduce from Altitude Angel, who I deem the Drone Assist team, because everybody at Altitude Angel works on Drone Assist. Surely it must be that important. There must be the only thing the entire company does, of course. But yeah, we're going to be bringing Chris and Stephen in and having a chat with them, talking about the app itself as well. But we're also going to be talking about things like getting an update on Project Skyway, which obviously we brought you their colleague Richard's interview when that launched, something like 9 months ago now when it was announced, which is incredible. So we can get an update on what's happening there. We've also got a few other bits and pieces, a couple of surprise bits and pieces to talk about as well, and also talking about, of course, the future of UTM, which is something that Altitude Angel are very squarely within the midst of, frankly, which is a very, very exciting side of things, a very nervous side of things, especially for us recreational drone users. But I think it's something which we need to embrace because come what may, it's coming. My personal opinion, oh, bear with me just 1 second, sorry. Okay, apologies everybody there. Yeah, they put the fire out later. Yes, it was actually our alarm going off, which we've now dealt with and also confirmed that there aren't any issues within the building. Well, as far as I'm aware, one of our production crew has just screamed yes when I screamed, "Is everything okay?" So I suppose that's down to whether I trust their perception of what okay is, but apologies there. But yes, perhaps someone doesn't want us talking UTM. But I was about to say, Altitude Angel are very much in the UTM business, and we don't have favourites here on Geeksvana, but certainly the company that has helped bring us Drone Assist and has kept Drone Assist going and has now invested to redevelop that app is certainly one of my personal favourites. And I'm also personally a huge fan of Project Skyway because I see it as a less intrusive way of having UTM and having lots of different drone services happening in the skies without impacting us all through yet more regulation or stipulations or pay-per-fly and all of that fun stuff, basically. So if you've got a question for Chris or Stephen or myself, do tag at Geeksvana in the chat so that I can see those a little bit more clearly. And yeah, we'll just pretend that 30-second 1 minute incident didn't happen, and we'll bring the guys in. Oh, hi, how are you? Can you both still hear?
We can, thank you.
Yeah, your hearing starting to, it's a very loud alarm, isn't it?
Well, yeah, we're good.
You're certainly left with no hesitation that there's an alarm going off.
At least we know if something happens, we're safe because we'll get to know to get out of the building.
That's it, exactly. So yes, as I say, we have Chris here on screen left and Stephen on screen right. Chris, could you just introduce yourself and tell us who you are and what you do at Altitude Angel?
Yeah, of course. Well, firstly, thank you very much for having me. I'm Chris Forster, so I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Altitude Angel. I've been with the company 7 years and I think 2 days now. So
wow,
pretty much since the start. Really excited about the future of the drone and UAV, UAM industry and what we're doing in changing the aviation landscape and how we're going to welcome and provide technology and services to help this industry take off. Excuse the pun. Got to get it in there early.
Very exciting. Yeah, very exciting. And I have to say, every time I every time I either visit Altitude Angel or I come across you guys, I meet yet somebody else who is technically gifted in airspace in some way or other. And do you have like a factory somewhere where you're just sort of having these employees produced?
Yeah, we kind of need like an Altitude Angel school, don't we? Yeah. So I guess it's an interesting question because we have a new industry. So actually, there are a growing number of people that know about the industry, but actually a lot of people that come to the company are new and they learn as they join. And it's something that I think is really beneficial because you're bringing that knowledge and sharing it across the ecosystem. So.
Okay, that's an interesting way of doing it because again, it is one of those areas, especially UTM is, we talk about vaporware and we talk about that kind of thing. And UTM is probably one of the most misunderstood and misrepresented things within airspace right now, frankly, which is extremely frustrating, frankly. Stephen, hi.
To that point, I'd say that it's misrepresented by some UTM companies that think they're UTM.
Yes, when they're actually not UTM.
Yeah, so.
Yes, indeed. But welcome, Stephen Farmer. Could you?
Yeah, I'm Stephen Farmer. I'm head of corporate comms for Altitude Angel. So I've been with us now for 4.5 years. I'm not one of the most technical people in the business. I will hold my hand up there, but I do make an effort, which is the main thing.
But isn't that kind of? I think that's also one of the advantages though as well, because you're not technical. For the comms to flow through you, you've got to understand it, which means the audience are going to understand it.
So when I do the press releases and do the comms, I'm a conduit basically. The people that are going to be reading my press releases, that might be a tech journalist who one day is writing about airspace and the next day is writing about a new remote control car. So they're not going to understand UTM like we do it. So I try and make it into there's enough technical knowledge there to get someone like you excited, but I also need to make sure that the wider public
steady calling me technical. There's a few people that disagree with you there, but excellent. Well, I really do appreciate you guys coming down, and I appreciate the early access to the app and you allowing our audience to have the sneak peek today before the app actually goes live. It's all very, very exciting, as I say to us drone geeks, and for something that is in the pockets of so many drone flyers in the UK. It's so important, and frankly, it wasn't that long ago where I felt like perhaps Drone Assist was probably going to go away. So to see it actually come back so strong and in a redesigned format is absolutely fantastic. Can you tell us a little bit about the history of the app? Because I think that's, again, one of the parts of this which is misunderstood slightly, because in terms of, why haven't you updated it before? Sounds like quite a simple question. But of course, the app wasn't always completely under your control, was it?
Exactly. So I'll give you kind of the history of it, really. So you're aware of Drone Safety Map. That's really where everything started, and that's a web browser functionality that you see on the desktop typically. And then in early 2016, we created a Guardian app, and then I think it was December 2016, we released a version of that in partnership with NATS, National Air Traffic Services, based in the UK. And I think it was at the NEC I think it was the drone show. I can't remember the name of it. In NEC in December 2016 is when we.
That's going back, isn't it? Yes.
And there was a lot of excitement. I think at the start we had the drone code by the CAA really sponsoring and pushing the application forward out there, and it really was put out there as an educational piece and making sure people had information that was traditionally on paper maps and in pre-flight rooms before you go flying for general aviation at the fingertips on a mobile device. So a lot of the early work was actually taking that data and transforming it into something that was really accessible to anyone without an aviation degree or being a professional pilot. So giving everyone the ability to see where those restrictions were, what the hazards were on the ground, was one of the key principles of that first deployment, to really make sure that we weren't going to stop the drone industry advancing, and these huge benefits that we're going to see from the drone industry today and in the future can come to fruition. It was then, I think it was over the COVID period really, that we decided to take the application back in-house. While the application itself didn't have a huge amount of updates from a user interface point of view, it is worth calling out that over that period of time, we added a lot more data, and it had a lot of refinement on that data. So between 2016 and 2008, there was a lot of work that was done to make sure that data was presented as quickly as possible. It was always up to date. The drone operators could have full confidence that that would provide them what they need to contribute to a safe flight with them. When we bought back in house, we decided, obviously the Drone Assist brand itself is very, very powerful. It's well known. And the original application was a shared application across two different platforms, the Android platform,
Right.
but also the Apple platform. And it was one, from a technical point of view, one deployment. And what we've been able to do with the investment over the last 18 months is to really split that out and take a lot more advantage of the native features of Apple and Android. Now they've advanced to today's time frame. So yeah, I think that's a bit of history for you.
Excellent.
I think it's fair to say as well as our team has grown. We've been able, we've got UX designers, UE. So it's all, as our team's grown, we've been able to put that investment in people into the apps as well. So as we're getting bigger, we've been able to sort of cross-pollinate, should we say?
No, indeed, absolutely. Well, and it's exciting to now have it obviously at this position where it's where the app can leap forward, basically, to have things like weather on there, and obviously that handy thing of having the satellite terrains and that sort of thing. Because of course the rest, as you were saying, with Android and Apple as platforms have moved forward, but also of course so have mapping services and that type of thing. And I feel like this update has brought things technologically wise and user interface wise very far forward, and it feels more like a sort of Google Mapsy type of interface that you're dealing with, which of course people are used to are used to doing it that way. It's great to have the weather on the front page as well. Are there any plans to expand the weather side of things to be able to have sort of predictions for 6 and 7 days ahead and that type of thing? Because one of the very popular apps that people have been focusing on for their weather here in the UK has now gone to a paid system, unless it's a very, very short window. So I wonder if there's an opportunity there for Altitude Angel to be able to, now you have the weather on there, to expand that.
Yeah, I think on the application, and over the reason why it's taking, I guess, 18 months to get to the application you've shown and kindly demonstrated in the show, was because we listened to the user feedback. We've collected that. We've done a huge user experience study with essentially hundreds of users to make sure we're capturing what they need. Now, obviously, we didn't want to wait till next year or the year after to release the app. So we've decided we've created a set of features which we think is a reasonable move forward for the application, and we wanted to get it out there in the market. And now it's, again, we need to listen, we need to take feedback such as the longer term weather, and then decide when we can suitably put that into the application.
Excellent.
So it's not just a one drop and that's done.
Yes.
It is the purpose of this is to continually add features to the product over time.
Okay.
And that might very well be one of the ones that come in the future.
Excellent. So whereas obviously before we didn't have many updates because of the ownership of the app and the way that all worked. Now, of course, now it's back fully under Altitude Angel's control. We can hope to see regular updates and tweaks happening, etc., which is really exciting, frankly. Very, very exciting. You were talking about sort of changing things from feedback, etc. You had a beta test program, which I was lucky enough to be involved in. What kind of feedback did you have from that? Did you make many specific changes from the feedback of those testers?
And we've brought a lot more things to the fore, like something such as weather. Weather was on the old Drone Assist, but it was quite well buried. Likewise, sort of the flight planning tools and what have you. So now they are a lot more front and center. So by doing that, we're hoping that more people will file flight plans, and again, you can see more people using airspace and what have you.
The beta also addressed some of like little tweaks, little defects that we maybe hadn't caught. So having that and thank you to all the users that took part in that, because actually having it used in the real world actually does capture feedback and information that we're unable to capture in a test environment. So it's really critical to make sure the app is as stable as possible, that we capture that information early.
Superb, excellent words. It's exciting stuff. Now, there has been one area of which has become sort of more to the forefront, I suppose, more recently in terms of wording, and I think this is probably because your average even recreational flyer these days actually has to be quite adept and quite knowledgeable of the drone rules. A sub 250 can fly here, can't fly there, and at certain times of day that NOTAM's not working, etc. And when you do click on some of the notifications, such as some of the danger areas and that type of thing, there is the sort of what I called in my live premiere, the sort of woolly wording between sort of that. Is that again one of the areas that you're looking in the future to be able to evolve? Because obviously you can't, I also understand you can't go from what it is now to just the wording's changed overnight, because of course there are legal implications to that as well. There are precision and that type of thing, and I know you guys don't do something unless you've done it the right way, but yes, is that something which is going to be changing?
It's something that will gradually change over time, absolutely. I think you can see we're already as part of the flight submission process, if you want to fly in a UTM ready zone, which some of the more advanced airports and landowners are already putting in place. They actually like to understand what drone is going to fly there. So you've got your profile within the application, which captures the drone. That's really a first step in understanding how we adapt the language in the restriction to suit you as well as it can. So a CTR to most people under 7 kilograms is not the same as an FRZ, but actually if we know what drone you have, you can see or imply what we're going to do there in the future. But as you say, the law today, the pilot has to make an understanding of the laws, and we need to provide them, and they need to do the interpretation of those. Over time, the more certainty we have about correlation between a drone, the qualifications of a pilot, for example, and the location, then we can actually do the calculation. But as you said, we have to get that very
and of course there's always that point as well that Drone Assist is a guidance app. It isn't in itself saying you have permission to fly here just because it says that there could be a number of reasons why so someone still can't fly in a location that either any app tells them. So it's always that thing that the apps are guidance, and as you say,
companion
exactly, becomes part of their process in terms of how that works. But that is very interesting. A couple of questions from the chat before we move on to our next topic. Is there any benefit? Sorry, just press wrong button there. Is there any benefits or any particular differences between using Drone Assist versus Guardian?
So we've got a number of partner applications that we brand, and that they're both in the UK and also abroad. They will all get essentially retrofitted over time to the new version. Some of those custom versions do have additional features that may make it more contextualized. That said, it's really worth highlighting, and this probably comes to the UTM discussion later on, that it's not the app that's the UTM. That is a portal into connecting to the UTM, to the UTM subsystem itself, and the APIs that we allow, and we have a lot of partners using those APIs, can build the same features and capabilities into their vertical applications, which might be industry specific, for example. So yes, I would expect now that those new APIs are available. We will see a gradual introduction of those across the different applications that connect into Guardian over time.
Okay, excellent. And I mean, I've always had it in my mind that the sort of Guardian is more your commercial flyer, and Drone Assist was always the sort of recreational sort of focused side, but it's not necessarily that way anymore, because this major update and of course the way that the drone rules have changed now, of course, that your flight is all about the risk of your flight, not why you're actually carrying it out. So the two platforms become very similar essentially.
Yeah, they will be very similar, and then probably converge. The Guardian UTM, the terminology is probably the term we use for the background, whereas the Drone Assist is more of the user interface for a drone operator to connect in,
the bit in people's pocket, as it were. So yeah, absolutely. One interesting one actually, and Amok time. Sorry, that question by the way was from Little Blue Dinosaur, which I love your username, by the way. And thank you very much for being one of our channel members. You guys rock. Amok Time Flies says, excuse my ignorance, and I may genuinely have missed something, but how is all this funded? And that's an interesting one as well, because he does follow it up to say that's not a challenge, by the way, just genuinely interested, because it is something, of course, originally the app was funded, I understand, by NATS and there was yeah, it was cross-funded previously, but obviously now this has, I assume, cost Altitude Angel money. You now have a team working on Drone Assist, which is costing you ongoing money, etc. How is that funded in terms of, you know, allowing the recreational side, especially people who don't even want to necessarily register on there, they can still use the Drone Assist for free?
Yeah.
How does that work?
So we treat it as an investment from the business, because we obviously, as a company, and I hope the viewers as well as the ecosystem of drone operators that utilize the sky with drones understand there is a future for drones in the commercial and public services space. We need to accelerate towards that. And in order to do that, we need to make sure that those that participate in the airspace have access to the information they need to keep them safe. We certainly don't want anything that could move us off that course. So our investment in this is really to make sure that we can provide that safety information,
Yes,
to ensure the industry moves forward in the way we want it to.
so essentially these are the kind of building blocks needed to allow the sort of future of UTM to happen.
Exactly, like a foundation layer, basically.
Yeah, you can't have UTM without anybody being able to access it and that type of thing. So actually, yeah, it's all important. So it's something that you see as an investment, which is obviously for now is a huge benefit for us recreational users.
And it should, as I said, we're API, application program interface first company. So the platform itself has the APIs in front of it. This also demonstrates what others can do and build upon within their applications, which obviously may have commercial purposes in the future.
Yes, indeed. I'm actually just marking Richard Parker in the chat as a moderator, and
I wouldn't recommend that.
I wouldn't recommend it. But that is Richard Parker, he of Altitude Angel. What's his current title?
CEO and founder.
There you go. Which is a pretty definitive title. But yes, Richard is also in the chat answering people as well. Just in case you're wondering why someone who is clearly highly knowledgeable of Altitude Angel is answering people in the chat as well. But I've marked him as a moderator. He's just said "Oh, powers," so perhaps I should start regretting that already. But there we go.
He doesn't need any more power.
Yeah, he has enough. Lindsay Hayes, hi, in the chat, one of our regular viewers. He says, "Hey, Geeksvana, if I know of a significant ground hazard, how can I get it onto the map? And if I have to do an aerial inspection of the hazard itself, how can I fly over it afterwards?" Well, the second part is obviously dealt with via regulation and safety and, you know, good drone flight. But that's an interesting one as well in terms of being able to add things onto the maps. Is there a protocol for that at the moment, or is that a future option?
So we do absolutely listen to users who would like to see more applications. We've obviously got quite a detailed portfolio of data. As I said, since 2016, That's primarily what we were building on. I think one thing that we're really keen to ensure is that the data on the map is coming from an authoritative source. And obviously, if there's a digital way to access that data and keep it up to date critically, then that's something we'll consider adding. And you can contact us through the normal support channels, and we'll have a look at the source. We obviously need to make sure we have the right licenses, etc., to use such data. But yeah, that's how we would typically bring on board a new data source.
Okay, and this is thank you for the answer, by the way. And this is a one from another of our channel members, Tazzy, who is asking, and this is an interesting question. I'll put it how he's put it. What is the vision of Altitude Angel in respect to hobbyists? And I probably take that, and I know Tazzy fairly well from being a regular viewer, etc. From the point of view of, obviously you are a business, and the financial gains side of that is obviously with things like Project Skyway, and you know the future of your no doubt amazing future of your business. But what is your sort of attitude towards what is your vision for recreational flyers amongst all of this?
I think whether it's a recreational drone operator or even a recreational pilot in general aviation, we all have to share the airspace together. So those foundations will need to connect with one another, share the information to keep everyone safe, and working in a cooperative manner. I think if we isolated one group, it wouldn't work. You can't segregate the airspace in that way. If we think about Arrow, for example, it's about sharing the airspace in a non-segregated way. So we absolutely have to continue working with the community to share such information in a consumable manner. And
if anybody doubts that in terms of Altitude Angel's attitude towards that, you can basically visit any live stream where Richard Parker or any panel where Richard Parker attends and anything of that comes up. he will very passionately answer that question in terms of, as you just said, keeping airspace open. And I think that's something that the drone community don't realize, that is actually the rest of aviation is just as passionate about keeping airspace open. You know, ATC want to give you permissions, the right permissions within FRZs and that type of thing, if it's appropriate, etc. And you know, people, there is not. There are people out there who are anti-drone, of course, but within aviation there isn't an automatic, oh no, you know, those terrible recreational drone pilots, we need to get rid of them. There just isn't that attitude. Sorry, Stephen, I was about to interrupt you.
I think the hobbyists are tomorrow's businesses.
Okay.
And that's the thing. I mean, pretty much every professional drone operator I know, they started off as a hobbyist, and that's where the progression will come from. It's just people, you know, playing with drones and seeing business opportunities and being asked to do jobs for people, and that's
how it started for me.
Playing
with my Parrot drone from Argos, and look at me now, Mom, as I look at me now, Mom, as I say, yeah, indeed. And now I'm stuck in this warm room talking to you guys. So where did it go wrong? Lindsay, you're welcome for that. Thank you for asking this question. So up next, we're going to be talking about and getting an update on a very interesting topic. Now, earlier in the chat, Amok Timeflies and a couple of the viewers very kindly answered in terms of the fact that I was using things like UTM and, you know, which is Unified Traffic Management. And actually, what does it all mean? Well, this is one take on it, and we're going to get an update on this in a moment as far as how things are going. But this little video from Altitude Angel was actually a very effective way of explaining a little bit about the project. So I'm going to play that first, and we're going to come back and get an update from Chris and Stephen about how things are going.
In the 1800s, the rail network expansion fueled significant industrial growth. Connecting towns and naval ports together brought revolutionary efficiencies to the movement of goods and people, spawning entirely new industries and businesses. Today, we begin the next industrial and commercial revolution: automated flight. The Skyway system establishes a network of superhighways up to 10 kilometers wide, with the first main route spanning 265 kilometers between Reading and Coventry. Soon, time-sensitive transportation of medical items and organs, fire, medical, and police scenarios, as well as the delivery of high-value, low-volume goods, can start to be moved by automated drone, unlocking the vast potential of drones to transform lives and revolutionize business. Skyway has safety and privacy at its core. Powerful sensors on the ground looking up detect crewed and uncrewed aviation traffic and create a real-time moving map of the sky above, which is relayed to the Skyway controller in the cloud, where it is used to provide automated air traffic control for drones flying on the superhighway, preventing collisions. Drones can enter or exit the Skyway anywhere along the route, bringing access to millions of businesses and citizens. Automated flight. Anywhere and for everyone. Just imagine.
Excellent. So that is a very quick reminder of what Project Skyway is. And one of the reasons why it gets the Geeksvana backing 100% wholeheartedly is because this system is something which actually will allow us to carry on flying our drones. You know, you could be flying, and some of you will have been flying in the test zones for Project Skyway, and you have no clue. You'll have no idea. You will still get your Mini 3 out, you'll fly your drone, etc. But the Project Skyway system tells the drones using the corridor to divert round your flight and to divert round EMS helicopters and anything else that's using the lower airspace. So it to me, it feels like a natural system because it's going to have it's also from the point of view of it actually working. Because I think if you look at the recent CAA report where allegedly 53% of drone users aren't even registered, how on earth are we going to get them to log flights, to sign into UTM systems and all that kind of thing? So the more passive you can make it on the recreational side, the better from that point of view, but also my point of view in terms of keeping the airspace open. How is it going?
Very well. So it's the project, as you've seen in the video, is a 265 kilometer corridor. As you know, the first part of that corridor was developed a couple of years ago. It was the 8 kilometers in the Reading area. We did a big demonstration back, I think it was July 22, where we extended the corridor over to Englefield House and did some fantastic operations. I think there was something like 90 or 100 operations in the course. You have to keep me honest with the number.
Yeah, no, 120. I think
With a number of operators showing real commercial use cases for drones. And obviously, we were delighted to do the Project Skyway in partnership with a number of consortium partners, including BT. And at the moment, the construction of the towers is underway. We have a warehouse where a lot of the cabinets are being constructed, all the component parts are being put together. And we've started, obviously, the Reading side, and we've started on the northern side of the corridor up near Coventry as well. And we expect the deployment of those towers to be completed this year.
Wow.
For that corridor.
This year, wow.
And with commercial operations being started from July 2024. So
Fantastic.
Almost, it's crazy. We're almost halfway through that project at this point. So it's gone quick. So much work on both the hardware and software side of things, but also working with the regulators on making sure that when we go commercial, it can be as automated as possible, and really thanking the community as well for the support, because with the community support, we can put the pressure on the authorities to really move things forward in a more quick, fast
Absolutely.
manner. That's critical.
Yes, and it is good to see that this is something that the drone community does seem to have. Well, we are going to adapt to it, because when we look at other UTM systems that say actually we need to start adding modules to our drones and things so that the UTM system can effectively control our drone to move it out of the way. I just don't like the thought of that. There's so many problems with those, and I know that was an early model, but it has stuck in my mind. So anything that can keep the airspace open and is as low touch for the recreational user, I think is great. Because even from, am I right in even from the commercial users of it, they don't, obviously the drones themselves are going to be particularly advanced and heavy lift, but they will get the comms directly from the Arrow system. Correct. Themselves.
So there's still some oversight, obviously, from a regulatory point of view at the moment. But the idea being that the system will be able to provide instructions either to the drone or the ground control station, and in the first instance, it will be the pilot that will accept those navigation guidance to move to a specific waypoint or whatever the UTM navigation system recommends to keep it out of the conflict with another aircraft or hazard.
Okay.
I still would like, if it's possible, I know that it's not a necessarily legal requirement today to log your drone flight, but obviously, even at the recreational side of things, to share your flight plan.
Yes.
I really advocate for that, because it does make the system easier. It does make things that
will help.
Safer,
yes.
And it does help everyone.
No, indeed, and it's something that I log a lot of flights actually. But again, I think it's something that it will obviously help the system to know that someone's going to fly their Mini 3 from there. It's a recreational flight and it's happening at X, and it's all data again, isn't it? It's all data sets that can help for the planning of flights, etc.
Absolutely, but it also helps the. We're going to talk about things like approval services with facilities. It helps us prioritize which facilities we go and speak to as well, because the more flights there are on a specific area, obviously that's where we're going to focus the attention on speaking to the facility or landowner and suggesting that actually, why don't they become UTM ready to simplify their process?
Yes.
Make it easier for them, make it easier for the drone operator, and get the industry moving forward.
Exactly. Again. It's all data that gets people flying, etc., isn't it? Really. So, and the BT thing is something which has happened since I had my interview now last year with Richard. So congratulations there. I mean that is a major force to have partnered with, especially in the type of technology that you're developing and deploying. And I know from their releases and from their comms, it's something they're very excited about being involved in. So I doff my cap. A great partnership there, which I think is going to have a huge
great partner to work with, and obviously they have so much experience in the infrastructure space. So
connectivity will be a massive part of Skyway, and as Chris said, the infrastructure. When we're building these towers, we don't want to be putting towers in fields where we don't have to. So anywhere we can piggyback on BT's existing infrastructure, so minimal impact on the environment. It makes total sense.
It was one when I read the first release, I stopped for a moment and I thought, okay, because obviously they're two brands that I've never heard together before, but then it's one of those ones where 24 hours later it makes complete sense, and it should have been that way the whole way along, frankly. And I think it's good to have that kind of partner this early on, because as you say, with the existing infrastructure and everything else like that, where it can go, it is literally limitless as you both develop, because there's other technologies in their wider business that they will develop that will benefit Project Skyway as well.
Absolutely.
One question from myself, which was actually one of the things which I thought of whenever I saw that fantastic video, explainer video, is what happens in terms of when this gets scaled. So when we have the full map, which was at the beginning of the video, we have these highways all over the country, and even huge swathes of cities covered by the Arrow system. We'll call it Project Skyway. What happens in terms of when those numbers increase? That's where I become a little bit fearful, that when you then have lots of medical deliveries happening down a corridor, you have it becomes a much wider used thing, because people start seeing actually that's a very eco way of sending, it's a very low cost way of sending my goods. So then you suddenly got John Lewis sending from warehouse to warehouse down these highways, etc., which is all fantastic, and I fully embrace the jobs and everything else that'll bring. But surely that level of increase will put more pressure on the recreational pilots using that airspace as well.
Yeah, so I think we've got some marketing discussion around, I think they call it a superhighway, skyway. I think it's really important to remember this is not like the M4, which is 6 lanes wide. We're talking about 8-10 kilometers in width here. So it's not necessarily going to be constrained to the level that you might see on the roads today. I think we are appreciative that if we do see billions of drones in the sky, which we will hope in the future will
indeed
transform businesses and move things forward, we will obviously need to improve efficiency within the airspace. And some of the research work that we've been doing in Europe, but also here in the UK, around how do we dynamically manage capacity to make sure that if, for example, the weather is optimal, we can have as many drones in the space as possible. But if maybe the weather deteriorates, we need to increase separation. So if you think about what happens to the airport in fog and high winds, they increase the distance between the planes, and the airport capacity is less. But I think we're quite a few years away from exhausting the corridor.
Excellent.
From
yes,
that side of
it's a good clarification to make in terms of the actual width of these things, because it is, as you say, it's a lot of airspace. And if we do end up filling that kind of airspace, then it's also possibly a good problem in many ways, certainly commercially speaking. Have you seen any kind of, and I use the term extremely loosely, but it is one of the questions that was direct messaged to me a few times today, but AI, do you see any sort of value in integrating? Has there been any kind of development on that side of things, as far as the recent developments in AI benefiting things like Project Skyway?
Yeah, so I mean, I think we need to be careful from a airspace point of view. I think if we talk about autonomy versus automation, this is a clarification we try and make, because we believe the system, while it's in production, live operation, working with drones, it needs to be deterministic, and having something that we can't predict or know the answer to will be difficult. I would say things like AI and machine learning become really useful in training a system that you can then fully test, and then becomes deterministic. So I think it's pre-flight if that technology is used, not during the flight itself. Yep.
Yeah. I defer to my friend.
that makes complete sense to me, actually, because that is the safe environment for it to be, and also where it can save a lot of man hours and actually leap forward the whole sort of the automated scenarios it can run and that type of thing as well, to find where those issues are. And so no, that makes complete sense. Thank you. I'm always very careful when I mention AI and start to talk about AI, because it's it's a whole other show, it's a whole other channel, frankly. But what we have right now isn't quite AI, but anyway, but yes, it's one that, as I say, several people asked me, so I thought I would put it forward. If we can just so thank you for that update. Before we move on to our next topic, can we just move back very quickly to the app, just because it is actually one quite important question, which is actually the information shared. Obviously, someone using the Drone Assist app, the new style Drone Assist app, if they use it to its fullest, will be putting a lot more data in than they necessarily would have with the old app, including home address and mobile numbers and that type of thing. How is that stored, and who do you share that with?
Yes, so we've got obviously an updated privacy policy for that. We are, as a company, one of the key principles is the respect of data, and we're very clear throughout the process of where your data is going. So the primary use of the data is for us is only to collect data we need to support you with the service you're using. So let's take an example. Let's say you want to use the application to plan a flight, and you want to go and fly in an area of airspace that's UTM ready. Biggin Hill is a good example here, or Cranfields. Then when you file that flight plan, it will attach your data with your permission to send that to the airport so that they can review the flight plan. That's something you would probably do today anyway when you fax or call the number.
You would have to give them that data. Yes, indeed.
The data is not shared on the map publicly. And when you submit to that airport, it's only shared with that airport. None of the other zones would see that information, so it's very much tenanted to the location that you're flying. The only data that's shared on the map is the information that's quite clear. It talks about public name, public description, which is obviously in the drone operator's discretion.
So when you log a flight and you say, I'm going to be flying here, I'm going to be taking photos of my house,
Exactly.
and I'm flying a Mini 2, and as you say, whatever public data you put in there, some people may put a mobile number to be contacted, that type of thing. Then of course you are sharing that publicly.
And we obviously, when we work with the facilities, we make sure that data is not passed on further for that purpose.
Yes, they'll have their own sort of policies in place, etc. as well, won't they? And the app itself is obviously data secure and data. It isn't a data farm to sell off to other companies.
Absolutely
to suddenly start getting emails from, hey, you like Drone Assist, maybe you'll like.
No, this, and certainly not the private information. There's definitely not something we would do.
Excellent. It's worth spelling that out, because I know that for a fact from reading your terms and conditions anyway. But I think it's worth spelling out to people just so they're aware of that. I think it was Let's Go Fishing that asked that question, but it was a little bit further up, so I apologize because it did skip us by a little bit there. So thank you for that, and thank you for the update on Project Skyway. Very, very exciting. I look forward to hearing and seeing when the masts start to get rolled out. I just call them masts when I've just simplified them.
The towers.
Towers, yes. When those sticks and those little sticks get rolled out. But I very much look forward to that. So in terms of what else this app can do in the future, and in terms of other things, there's another topic you wanted to raise with the audience to sort of start getting feedback and sort of start having a conversation about.
So within the app now, we're going to have, as we've talked about, approval services. So if you want to file a flight plan within an airport CTR, you can do that. But then we're also looking at doing that now with landowners. So especially for professional drone pilots who need to get access to certain areas, they often struggle to find out who owns the land that they want to take off and land from. So we're looking to bring some of that data in, so you can actually start now filing flight plans and getting digital permissions instantly or whatever through the app as well. Okay,
so it's essentially takeoff and landing permission for the plot of land that you're going to be flying from.
Exactly.
So are we talking about, because obviously as many of our commercial operators watching will know, there is an onus to have that permission and to have that knowledge. So there is a financial benefit to them when I'm flying a commercial operation. If I was able to press on an app and pay someone some money and simply have that permission sent back to me straight away, great. That's obviously saving me a lot of time as well. But is it that kind of thing, or is it a wider use? Or
there will be that. So if for example, it takes you a week or 2 weeks to get permission to go through to find out who owns the land, and we can do that for you for a small fee, brilliant. We're also speaking to a lot of the heritage groups, these sort of people, ports, wherever you may want to fly, recreational as well as professional. If we can through the app grant you access to somewhere where you wouldn't have been able to fly before, because they're not allowing permission, but we can somehow not so much manage, because we're not managing airspace, obviously.
Yes.
If we can say to say that, I mean, I think we've talked about the National Trust before, and if you wanted to go fly at Stonehenge, you can't fly at Stonehenge. What you can do is you can park on the road,
Park outside
Yeah.
and fly across. Yeah.
But however, if you were able to get closer to the monument at the golden hour, like between 6 and 7 on a July morning, would you be willing as a recreational pilot to pay a small fee for that? And we're not. This isn't like £100, £200 fees.
Yeah.
We're talking low numbers. But what we want to do is sort of encourage, these landowners to sort of take this opportunity. And with that, we can get more people flying in far more interesting areas.
Okay, I mean it's obviously a sensitive type of subject, a sensitive type of thing to venture into, because there becomes the whole sort of pay per fly and that type of thing. But obviously you're not looking in terms of airspace here. You're looking in terms of, for instance, if for instance, a National Trust property that is in the middle of 80 acres, there is no legal way with line of sight for me to be able to fly that. But actually, if National Trust allowed me to pay £5.99, £10, whatever it is, and gave me an hour slot to take off from X site, then that gives me a way of capturing that.
Sometimes these landowners have good reason for not wanting people to take off
Yes,
land on there.
yes.
Whether it be an area of natural beauty or scientific, the triple SIs, whatever. So what we can do is, through the platform, we can permission at certain times of year or at certain times of the day, especially if like birds are nesting and what have you. So that's the sort of.
Yeah, I think it's making or providing the connection between the drone operator and the landowner to open up land access that was either prohibited in the past or was very cumbersome to get permission to fly at. That's the real principle behind it. And if you look to the future, why that's important in the bigger picture side of things is if every drone aircraft needs to take off and land somewhere, the future vertiports, for example, and having that digitally accessible before then you transit in your flight is part of that end-to-end sequence. So having each of these facilities able to connect into the platform in some way is a really powerful tool.
Okay, so this again is one of those features that is possibly has as much to do with future flights as our flight today, really. Exactly. So as you're saying, talking about vertiports and that type of thing, etc., that it's something that will be much more widely used because of course a delivery company wanting to take something from X to Y and getting a very quick digital permission to land at that port and have their guy pick the parcel up and take it to its end position, however they do that last mile. Then of course that's something but that would also be useful to a recreational pilot if they wanted to be able to fly within that kind of zone. How do you feel about implications in terms of because I've seen this done before and it wasn't necessarily handled particularly well. Regular viewers have seen the videos and have seen the live streams previously, and how do you think from the point of view in terms of I would fear that a local authority may say, right, our entire area is now an altitude angel UTM ready zone, and so all of our parks everywhere, you now have to pay £10 to be able to take off from them, that type of thing, and that's the sort of opening up things like National Trust, etc. Very exciting. If it's this, of course. As an end user, if it's the ones I want to fly from, I'm very interested. Yeah. But I worry that it could almost become an airspace restriction from the point of view that landowners could use it to price people out of being able to fly in certain areas.
Yeah, so I think that there will always be people that would be happy to allow you to take on land, even in the public areas as well, that are not necessarily council owned.
Yes.
Take off on land. So I don't see any. Well, the National Trust with big hectares of land, maybe it's more difficult, but there will often be places you can take off and land safely without going into that. But some councils today, for example, do have no-fly zones from their property, and what we're trying to do is turn them into fly zones. So it's more about drone enablement than disablement in that manner.
No, indeed, absolutely. But I think in terms of, I would say, and looking at the chat and the feedback that we've had previously on this kind of topic, is that it absolutely, from a gaining support point of view from the people that would be using the service, it's very, very important to us to see it in terms of there being very careful protocols, essentially, and it would be good if there was even, some form of almost ethical policy put over place on that kind of product, from the point of view of actually, are we putting something into place that could effectively be attempting to regulate the airspace by the back door, and stopping the creep towards, you know, pay per fly and that type of thing. And I think if we can avoid those kind of situations, then of course, you know, yes, personally, I actually there are some national trust properties, English heritage sites, other you know other leisure providers exist, that I would quite happily pay a few pounds to be able to take off from, and know that I'm not, you know, that all I can concentrate on is my flight being safe and everything else like that, and not worrying about anything else. But it is that creep that we would obviously, as a community, we would certainly want to see avoided at any cost, basically. Just very quickly, thank you very much for the couple of super chats. Norm Bright, one man and his drone, for a £5 super sticker, thank you. And Amok, time flies, for your £5 one as well, thank you. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate you all coming along this evening and spending time with us. So when are you expecting to see the first? When will that particular product launch within the apps?
Airspace services isn't in this iteration. I think it's.
It will be within a month or so of the initial release. So the initial release will be, as you say, open in a few days. It will be a phased deployment, so it will open up to users in sequence. And then I would say the next drop in 2 weeks to a month will have the next iteration.
Do you have landowners ready, signed up, and
not vast amounts? We've started that journey with a few. Actually,
I thought you were about to exclusively reveal National Trust, English Heritage. They're all signed up.
I think where we've got a lot of interest right now is if you think about where the Arrow corridor is. So this is where it all kind of connects together.
Yes.
So working with the partners in the Skyway consortium, people like Coventry City Council, and those airports near and around those will be UTM ready. So it will be the same kind of concept of becoming UTM ready for that end-to-end flight that we're hoping obviously to deliver in 2024.
Okay, so it's essentially this, and if we ever did get sort of national trust access and that type of thing, it's almost a byproduct of the air service product being developed for the corridor and other things that you're doing in terms of the building blocks for UTM in the future.
I think they're all foundations. I think they can work in isolation as well. So I absolutely see, from a commercial drone operator point of view, there being huge advantages to even one site that was enabled. Over time, I think we're going to see them connecting in a mesh type manner in the same way as we have with the Arrow corridor itself.
Now, there is a comment I'm going to read from Mr. Blue Dinosaur. It isn't actually a question, but it kind of is the feeling I get, and you know, and I do get people saying, "Oh, you like Altitude Angel, don't you?" I said, "Well, yes, because I've tested these guys many times. I've spoken to many people in your company, and over the last few years had lots of interactions long before I was a YouTuber or anything else as well. So, and I've always had a very, very positive relationship, positive feeling." Just this, the fact that the app and this conversation, the fact that actually, you know, this is a conversation that myself and Stephen had, and it was actually, well, let's go and have the conversation with your audience. You know, that it's that openness that you guys have, which is fantastic. But Little Blue Dinosaur says, I get the strong impression from these guys that they're not about policing or enforcement. They seem much more a tech company enabling effective and efficient multi-use of airspace and takeoff and landing areas. And I think that kind of puts it perfectly in my mind. In terms of, you are a tech company first and foremost, achieving things in the airspace, and very much not about policing or enforcement and that type of thing, which again is why Drone Assist is developed in a careful manner, because it's not you're not there to enforce.
And we're not an authority, so we have no rights, or nor do we want to. It is a technology there to enable the future flights of drones in the airspace, and that's what the journey we've been on for 7.5 years now, and the journey will continue on until we see the drones transforming businesses, revolutionizing lives.
Excellent. Well, I think we've taken up a lot of your time already. We've scared you with fire drills and everything else like that, but at least we gave you a free bottle of water.
Appreciate it.
I really do appreciate you coming along and speaking to us this evening, and again for you know, spending the time and the investment in including a refresh of the Drone Assist app in your commercial activities. I really do appreciate that. I think there is a lot of byproducts there that's going to benefit this particularly recreational users. But yeah, thank you very much for joining us this evening. I really appreciate it.
I think it is worth just saying before you sign up, the app goes live on Monday, but obviously through the stores, if you're refreshing at like a minute past midnight on Monday,
Yeah.
it might not appear on your phone.
It will be a phase.
Yes.
It'll be
Okay,
phased.
okay.
So it will take a few days to filter
Now,
through the app
this
store.
this is just a message between me and my audience here, okay? And for the guys that are still watching, thank you very much. I am an early adopter. I am someone that in my younger years would stand at midnight, queuing at midnight at game stores to pick up the latest Xbox release. And I'm a very big drone geek. However, if you're refreshing the App Store at midnight on Monday, then you definitely need to reprioritize. And that's me saying that. So but there we go. But yes, but thank you both very much for coming along. We look forward to lots of updates in the future. I look forward to putting out more content and saying, look what else you can do on Drone Assist, etc. It's going to be very, very exciting rather than it being a static product out there now. So it's very exciting. And also hearing more about Skyway in the future. But thank you very much.
Thanks for
Thank you
having
for
us.
having us.
Great. Okay, everyone. I will see you next time on Geeksvana Live. It will probably be next week unless anything particularly spectacular happens over the weekend. We'll see you then. Next week, we do actually have the interview with the MPCC counter drones boss, Andy Harding, which is a really, really interesting one, talking about PCNs, talking about some of the work that Geeksvana's doing with them, etc. All sorts of really, really interesting stuff. So keep an eye out for that live premiere as well. And there'll be another live show straight after that one. So thank you for joining us. Apologies for the slight tech problems. I pressed the odd button wrong. This is the new studio, which is for the podcasting and for the guest live streams. For the other live streams, I'll be back next door in the usual live stream studio. So I have my muscle memory down in terms of being able to press all those buttons. But thank you very much for bearing with us tonight. I really appreciate it. See you all next time on Geeksvana. Bye-bye.